There we go. We're 1 second in, Jenny. We've just gone. It's 7 o'clock. We need to hit
We have.
live. So here we are, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. It's another Tuesday, it's 7 o'clock, and welcome along to the Lincoln Property and Mortgage Show. We've got a really good topic that we're going to be doing this evening, following on from last week's show, all about tying up a sale on a property, how to sort out your onward purchase, who's involved in the next process, and what happens throughout the negotiations of conveyancing and sales progression until you hand over the keys. We've had some real good interactions, some questions come over to us. We've already got people watching this evening. So I'll tell you what, let's hit the credits. Let's get cracked on. We've got a great show tonight. Make sure you stay tuned. Bloody hell, Jenny, that was quick out the box with the bloody credits, wasn't it?
I know. Do you know, I've got such a delicate Wi-Fi and I forgot my mouse where I am. So I'm using the bit on the laptop, which is never a good place for me to be. So who knows what is going to happen tonight. I wish you all luck.
Well, this is the beauty of going live. That woke me up, I tell you. Right. Sorry. So I'm going to start to kick off with this week. And I'm going to talk a little bit, as I say, from lots of subjects we've spoken about before, about using an agent that's worth their salt, about tying up an offer, and even helping with your onward purchase. So if you've bought and sold properties before, I can probably hang my hat on the fact that 50% of you never had the experience of your agent negotiating on your onward purchase. In fact, it'd be more than 50%.
Let's be
honest. But that, you use your agent. This is what they're skilled in. So I'm going to talk first and foremost about why I think that's important. And I think a lot of that is because last year, as we were speaking about in last week's show, is the market was tough. You can't get around it. It was a tough, hard market last year. And one of the conversations and comments I made was, look, I wonder how many estate agents have retrained their staff in the last 12 to 18 months on how to maximize the sale opportunity with every single offer that comes along. Okay. And there will be some agents out there that will have done still plenty of sales all through last year. But that's not always a good thing as well, because sometimes you get complacent and you just take it for granted that this is the process of selling a property. And I think sometimes in a hard market, it's a really great opportunity to sit back and assess your processes, your systems, your platforms, your service standards, your ops manual, everything. But particularly around selling houses, because ultimately that's what the job is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important, maybe when you're talking to your estate agent again, is to say, look, what training and development do you have with your staff? Okay. Just on this point, one of the most interesting things about why people leave a state agency is often because they feel that they haven't had much development, training, and ongoing career progression. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important, that as companies, they owe it to their staff and their client base to make sure that they invest in training, support, development, and moving forward with things so that everybody develops. So I'm really passionate about this. So let's get to that point again, asking the question of your agent, what sort of development, what training do you put in place, and what have you done differently in the last 12 months to help you through the market or to prepare you for the market for this year? Because we all know we've got out of the blocks much better this year than ever before. Mm-hmm. So just homing in very quickly in regard to that sales process. There's lots and lots of different ways that you use to actually sell, agree the property. One of the things we've spoken about, again, many, many times is knowing your client, knowing your buyer, knowing what the needs are, and working as hard as you can to get that best offer, part of which could be even meeting the property owner, going to the property, trying to do the deal when you've got everybody there. So to try and get the maximum and the maximum outcome in the shortest possible time, so it doesn't feel as if you're just doing order taking. Mm-hmm. So that's a real quick summary about how to get the best, from the actual sale. But the other bit I wanted to move on, because we've talked about that a lot before, is agents can also help you with your onward purchase. And again, we keep using this sliding scale that if you've had to come down £5,000, but you can get your estate agent to negotiate off £6,000 off the other property, you're in the same financial, in fact, sometimes a better position. So use the skill of your estate agent to help you with your onward purchase. In that process of when they tie the sale up, they're going to be asking, okay, then Michael, where are you going to be moving to next? Right. Well, we found a property and it's on such and such a road, and this is the estate agent. And in that process, the agents are going to be doing chain checks to find out who's above and who's below. So you're going to have contact with that agent. And if you've got a really good relationship with your estate agent, and particularly your sales negotiator, ask for help. Say, look, we really only want to pay this for this property, but we know it's been on the market for this long and it's had this much interest. But use the benefit of also the relationship that estate agents will have with other estate agents to try and get you the right outcome. Now, that said, the other estate agent will also be working on behalf of their client to get the best outcome as well. But the benefit here is that estate agent will also know how much interest or lack of interest it's had, whether it went on the market a little bit ambitious on price and the conversations that they've had with that owner, but also they'll know the motivational needs and the story behind that home seller's move as well. And this is something that we've talked about. It's understanding the emotional side and the reasons behind a sale, so that estate agent, by talking with the other side, can bridge that gap of communication between all parties to try and get the best outcome. So I just feel that sometimes home sellers use an estate agent to sell, and then the agent leaves the homeowner to just completely in no man's land about how to negotiate the onward purchase for themselves, because they're not salespeople. I had a conversation recently, and people going, if I found the house I want, I'll pay asking price. That's great, but sometimes there is room for negotiation between all parties to get the outcome that everybody needs. Ultimately, everybody wants asking price. So I just think, use the relationship that you've got with your estate agent to get not just the best outcome from your sale, but also on your onward purchase as well.
And I think, what's important with that, Mike, is, it's the experts, isn't it? Estate agents are the expert. They can see it without the rose tinted glasses on. They can see it from both sides of the coin. Let's be fair, they probably had lots of similar conversations in the past with each other, because local estate agents are constantly talking to each other, asking what's happening within the sales price. So in the sale processes of other chains and where we're at. So sometimes they can have those honest conversations that perhaps as a buyer or as a seller, we don't necessarily feel comfortable having with the estate agents. It's almost like, I don't want to give the game away, or I can't be that cheeky. These people have those relationships already. So in some ways, what's better to have that conversation than people who already have that relationship to be able to have that and get an end result. Like we said earlier, like we say time and time again, the goal is that everyone gets to move. As long as everyone gets to move, then that we've all achieved. We've all got what we wanted. So for me, that's really important. That's key, that the estate agent sits and is that third party across all of the chains, and not even just in negotiating the sale. It's throughout that whole chain there.
Yeah, and it's really the start of this sales progression now is building that relationship with the agent. A couple of things also to point out here is if you're having conversations with an agent at the beginning of the sort of sales process, right back when you're choosing an estate agent, another great question to ask them is okay, so when I get a buyer, am I going to be dealing with you, Mr. Value, who's sitting in my lounge now? Am I going to be dealing with a sales negotiator in the back in the office? Or when it's then sold, is that negotiator seeing me through, or do you move me to a sales progression team? Great question.
Yeah, and absolutely. Sorry, Mike, just to interrupt there. From my point of view as a broker, when I'm contacting estate agents, one of the first questions I ask is, who's actually dealing with it for you? Because, everyone will have their certain sales. And if I can get to the person who fully understands where that seller is at, who understands where the buyer's at, what the property is doing, that's going to make everything a lot easier and a lot smoother than speaking to someone who kind of knows what's going on because they've seen it and they've had conversations in the office. So that is key. If we can get that one individual person to see that whole process through, it makes life easier for everyone in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. So a little subject which I'm going to touch on now, and then this will open up maybe into your field of expertise, Jenny, is when the offer is negotiated, one of the things that the agent has an obligation and a duty and a requirement by law to do is to check that the buyer is in a financial position to proceed. So within that process, the agent would be checking the identification of the buyer, They will also be doing what we call AML checks, which are anti-money laundering verification
Mhm.
checks, to make sure that the person also is who they say they are, has the legal capability and the ability and the financial ability to proceed with the sale. Okay, with the purchase
Mhm.
rather. Okay, so an agent will be doing all of that, and part of that will be is myself as an agent, I'll be asking for verification of the funding and the ability to finance the property. So, are you selling a property? What equity is involved in that? What price have you sold for? How much of the equity are you using for your onward purchase? Who you do your new mortgage with? Have you got an agreement in principle or a decision in principle from your lender? And if you're using a broker, I need them to send over the verification that you do have the funding and that offer in place. Okay, because otherwise I could be agreeing a sale on a property with no accurate knowledge that they have the financial ability to proceed. And I only had a conversation recently with somebody who was on the market with another agent, and that sale had fallen through because they got several weeks down the process and found out that the buyer couldn't get the funding available. And it wasn't just because a rate had changed or the circumstances had changed. It's because the buyer had absolute no idea, clarity on how much they could afford, which then subsequently has a lot of distress and heartache later down the line, because that homeowner potentially in that chain is going to lose the purchase that they're after. So you have to do this right at the beginning. So passing over to you here then, Jenny, what sort of conversations do you have with estate agents in regard to getting verification of financings and things, and where do you step in here?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm probably going to go on a bit of a rant about estate agents and estate agent brokers at the moment. So apologies, pull me back, Mike, if I do. Um, so in terms of this, when you do what we call sort of a mortgage discovery call, a fact find, we have that initial conversation. We will go through, where is the deposit coming from? How much can you afford? What does that look like in terms of monthly payments and features of your mortgage? And on the back of all of that information, you will get your agreement in principle. Now, this is the thing that most estate agents want to see. And if I'm honest, we're getting into a culture now where most estate agents want to see it before you even book a viewing, because like Mike's just said, they want to be sure that you've got the funding in place. Now, they're probably not going to ask for your deposit funds or proof of that, but they will probably ask to confirm that everything is lined up. And again, that's where, as a mortgage broker, I would come in, because you would receive the certificate from the lender. I can then vouch for you in terms of the estate agents contacting me saying, Jenny, have you done the full affordability checks? Is this doable? On the back of this, we do see, unfortunately, some, I'm going to use the word rogue estate agents, because I do think they're a bit of a rogue estate agent, telling clients that you have to see their in-house mortgage broker. You have to use their in-house mortgage broker, or they can get a better deal, or they can, the process will be smoother if you use our mortgage broker. They are all sales tricks. Okay, we can't get away from it. It does happen. At the end of the day, I don't care what industry you're in. You are there to sell some sort of product or service, and that is in essence what they're doing when they're making those comments. You do not. You can use any broker that you like. You're probably not going to get a better deal with one broker than you are another, because interest rates are the same across the board for the majority of people. If you're a whole of market mortgage broker like myself, we don't have special rates that only we can get. I wish we did, but we just don't. In terms of affordability, if the mortgage broker confirm that they have seen all of your documents and that they have produced an agreement in principle, that is all you will need to verify that you can afford that mortgage, along with proof of the deposit, whether that's savings gift or maybe an equity that you're releasing from your current home. And we can give you all of that information on an email that you can simply send over to your estate agents. And Mike, you'll know, once it's come from a mortgage broker, we know all the due diligence checks have been done, and we're all good to go, really.
Spot on. And just going back to that about where agents say you are required to see our mortgage advisor, you are required to get a quote from our in-house solicitors, etc. Make no mistake, no, you're not. It's actually mis-selling. So be very, very wary of an agent who is saying, in order for you to get this sale tied up, in order for it to progress quicker, in order to get the best deal, it's actually against legislation. It's mis-selling of Services Act. So just be very, very careful of that. By all account, if they offer you a service and you want to take it, but don't feel under obliged that you will get a better outcome by using that. That's what you need to be careful of. Okay.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
100%.
great point again there. So, from that point, what we'll have done is the agent will have done the checks. We've got the offer tied up. The offer letters will have all gone out to each party. The next piece in the jigsaw is the instruction of solicitors. Now, again, an agent will be able to point you in the direction of several solicitors. Sometimes they have their own in-house solicitors or special recommendation referral introducer status to solicitors. And again, use my wording quite clearly there, because agents can receive financial benefits from an introduction to a third party, and it's explained in all the their legal paperwork with their client. So it's all sort of written out as it should be. And also, you want to get the benefit of your estate agent giving you advice on which solicitors to use, because they'll be dealing with solicitors on a daily basis, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, sometimes in a year. And they'll know the ones that are helpful about giving updates, being very, very transparent. Whereas there are solicitors who will not pick up the phone and talk to an estate agent. They don't feel it's part of their responsibility. Their client is the buyer or the seller, and they will only deal with that party. And if they do need to speak to you, it will be by a letter or an email. Yes, I said it, a letter. There's so many agents which, again, conveyancers are still either using, if they still had a fax machine, they'd send it on a fax. So just again, you're looking for an agent that has a conveyancer that has a good online presence, that when you go to their websites, again, feel helpful, friendly, again, because you're going to be working with this person now for potentially the next 12 to 16 weeks. Okay. But ask your agent, who would you recommend? Who are you using regularly that has a good time scale of getting the sales through, or has a lower fall through rate? Okay. These are the important questions again to be asking. So that's the next thing, is the solicitor. The buyer will need to instruct a solicitor.
Just on that as well, Mike, what I would say as well, when you're looking at solicitors, look at the skills. So if you've got, say, I don't know, you're buying a shared ownership, you really want a specialist shared ownership solicitor. That's really key. And I often see it, especially with people that are maybe on a tight budget, they are simply looking at the cost to do the conveyancing, and the cost that it's going to be. And it can be quite misleading, because everyone needs to earn some money. So if they have, say, quite a significantly lower rate, that probably means they need to do more work to earn the money that they want to earn. Whereas if you're paying a little bit more, you can probably expect to have a bit more attention. So when looking at solicitors, be careful not to fall into the trap to think they all do the same, so it doesn't matter, I just need the cheapest one. I promise you, they don't all do the same, and actually you pay for what you get. So sometimes, to get it pushed through quickly, it's better to pay that extra £100, £200, whatever it is, to get that through. And if you use one that is a local solicitor in the local area, again, it's about those relationships. The estate agents can pick up the phone, have those challenging conversations. The mortgage broker can pick up the phone, have those challenging conversations. And between us all, we can really start to push that over the line and get that chain completed.
And I think this is why I love doing the conversational side here, Jenny, because again, you just picked up on a couple of things there. The first thing, and I'm going to try and make sure I don't forget them both. The first thing is, again, where possible, use a local estate, a local conveyancer, particularly when we're dealing with things like local searches and inquiries that we're going to talk about later. If you use a solicitor which might appear cheaper, they won't know about things in Lincolnshire like radon gas emissions. Okay. Now, as agents and conveyancers and lenders, we're familiar with that sort of terminology because it's prevalent in Lincoln in areas where you've got clay and limestone, etc., etc. Okay. So it's going to come up potentially on a survey. A solicitor outside the area might not be knowledgeable about how to deal with an inquiry like that. Okay, so that's the first thing. Local is always best in my view. The second thing, and I didn't forget it, was, again, I like telling stories. I had a conversation with a home seller that I've been working with, and they had two quotes, one local, one from out the area, and it wasn't 300 quid difference. It was a substantial differential, and it was like, well, how can they be so different? But when we looked into it and we had some questions about, okay, the solicitor, first of all, wasn't based in the county at all. and it's more of a what we call a packaging conveyancer. Now, again, you're nodding here, so you'll be familiar. You'll probably be able to explain it better than me. But what you often get is you get packaged conveyances where you'll have paralegals dealing with some of the work, then it's passed on to somebody more of a senior experience, then it might go to another red team who are going to look after general inquiries, then it will go to blue team and they'll be looking at something else, and then we'll be going to yellow team when the water searches come back. Now, from an estate agent's point of view, what a nightmare, because every time we try and get through to a particular department, nobody knows where that file is. It's all electronic based, and what you would think would be an easy process, trust me, it's not. It's horrible. So you get what you pay for.
Yeah,
Don't get me
absolutely.
wrong.
Honestly, when I see those, and you know, obviously, I'm not going to name any names, but there's certain solicitors that come through, and I'm sure it's the same for you, Mike. Your heart sinks a little bit because you just think this is a lot harder than it
It's
actually
hard work.
needs to be.
It's
Now, there's places for those solicitors, and those
absolutely.
solicitors, the places are remortgages. I honestly believe they are not for purchase inquiry; they are a mortgage branding.
I was going to say, I think in summary on here is that, look, there's a place for a service for everybody. As we've always said, do your homework. There is a reason why they are cheaper, because their costs are lower, because their staffing levels aren't as great if need be. They're not localized, they're not specialized, and it is going to be a process conveyor belt to get you from point A to point B. And with the greatest respect, they don't care if the sale completes or not. That would be my view. It's how far down that process you get, and they will already be targeted that 20% of whatever goes through is going to drop off statistically. Yeah. I like my stats, as you know. So it's a numbers game. Use local, but use your agent to get advice on who to use. So that's the next bit, and that's when we do the memorandum of sale. And in the memorandum of sale, it confirms all the parties, what's been agreed, any fixtures and fittings. And I've talked about this in the previously in previous shows. Is at those points of negotiations, please try and get all parties to agree in principle to a proposed completion date. Right now, there are so many givens that we just don't know at the moment. So many factors that could affect the length of this sale. Sales falling through, somebody losing the job, somebody's falling pregnant, somebody being ill, a job promotion, so many surveys. There's so many things that can affect it. But if we can agree in principle, again, I'm dealing with one at the moment, and we've got something pressing because they're expecting a baby. And if we can get all of this chain to go through, work with that time scale, and you move in several weeks and then you've got a newborn, what an amazing outcome that everybody's going to have. Okay, but we've known this from day one. The other thing about timescales is, if your estate agent has done a really good job and has checked the chain below you, all the people involved, because that is part of their due diligence again, is sometimes that sale can be several weeks, if not months, ahead of where the top end of the chain has been. Now, lots of different reasons. Again, live example for me, I've got a chain going through at the moment where the bottom end, the real bottom of it, is a couple of months in. A sale fell through somewhere in the middle and they had to rebuy again, so they've been playing catch up. And then now the top end is catching up. So there's not pressure, but there's focus from the bottom, because sometimes a buyer might have a limit of expiry with their current mortgage offer, something we've spoken about before, Jenny. So sometimes I go, look, I want that rate. I've locked into that rate. I've got this on the table and I need it to complete by a certain timescale. When you're negotiating that, somewhere in the line, sometimes somebody needs to break the chain. So with no chain, make different arrangements, or hold everybody to account to say, right, Mr. Solicitor at the top end, we've all agreed this sale on the basis that this, and this happens. Can you obligate, as best you can, your fulfillment of your job to help us meet that deadline? So timescales is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I often, have conversations where they've said, oh, Jenny, look, they've agreed to take this offer off me. It's a little bit lower, but I've got to get it completed in this time. Can we get it pushed through? So again, actually agreeing that timescales from the start can sometimes save you a few pennies on the asking price as well, because sometimes, especially if it's a long chain, and we are seeing some really long chains at the moment, if we can get that deal done, usually it's down to the timescales more than it is the asking price, because we've got to, like you say, Mike, we've got to catch up there.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on from that. So memorandum of sale's gone out. Everybody knows what they're all doing. In the background now, what will happen is the buyer and the seller will be in contact with their mortgage arranger again to now start to put the process in place of making sure the funds are available. And Jen, I'm going to pass this back to you now to sort of summarize what you then do in regard to getting that packaged off and getting the survey out onto the property.
Yeah, absolutely. So usually you'd have your agreement in principle all done and dusted before you've had the offer agreed on the purchase. So it's a case of then submitting that to the lender. Now, where we're at with rates at the moment, any decent mortgage broker will always resource, and that's basically go back to the market and make sure that lender is the best rate for you at the time and has the best deal. We'll then do the full mortgage application. So in essence, we're going to send all of your documents into the lender. They're going to assess that. As long as they deem that's all suitable, they will then, that's what we call the underwrite part. So they're going to initially underwrite your case to make sure that all the figures add up. They will then send out for valuation. Now, there's lots of different types of valuations. The main thing, though, is a lender's valuation, which is basically just going to check that the property is adequate security for them and that it's priced at the right price. And then there's the home buyer's report, which is it's a report solely for you. That is like a traffic light system. Okay, so in essence, it's red is some work needs to be done in that area. Amber is it will need a bit of work in the future, and green is we're all good to go. So you'll get a report that is solely for you. No one else will see that report. I always tell my clients to have that report after the lender has valued the property and they deem it adequate to lend on, because you don't want to be spending 400, 500, 600, whatever it is for your home buyer's report to come back that actually they would never have lent on it in the first place. So as much as it annoys estate agents, because I know it does a little bit, a mortgage broker will always tell you to get the valuation done before you have the home buyer's report, because it could save you some pennies in the long run. As long as the valuation comes back okay. Now, most lenders will avoid trying to go to the property at the moment. You know, we've all got to save money where we can. And this is one way that lenders are saving money, by trying to do what we call a desktop valuation. If they can get away with that 100%, they're going to do that for you. If they can't, then they will visit the property. But they're not looking at it as in, you know, they'll look to see if there's damp. They're going to look to see if it's adequate security for them, but they're not going to look at it in the detail that a home buyer's report will look at. If that's all okay, then they are going to send you your mortgage offer. Most lenders, it lasts for 6 months, and this is when they let the solicitors really pick up the pace and will start to do all of the searches and the inquiries to try to push that over the line for you. But once you've got your mortgage offer, your mortgage broker will still be with you. They're going to be with you until you collect your keys. They're not going anywhere. It's, you know, they don't even take a back seat. You know, even today I was speaking to an estate agent about a damp report that we needed and getting that negotiated. Who's going to pay for that? How's it going to be paid? When is it going to be paid? All for one of my clients, which we have finally got sorted today, which is fantastic. So just because you've got your mortgage offer, it doesn't mean your broker's leaving you. We will be with you until you collect your keys.
Excellent. Right. So moving on in the background of what's also happening alongside that. Once you've instructed your solicitors, my advice as an agent is to talk to your solicitor about getting your local searches paid for and underway. Now, why that's important is that some agents or some solicitors wait until they've got the mortgage offer to make sure that the financial ability is still in place. This can hold the sale up by 3-4 weeks sometimes. Not always, but depends on, again, the outcome of what Jenny's just said there. If that's the case, and we've waited till the mortgage offer, and then we start applying for local searches, and then we're dealing with inquiries, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, this is one of the ways where sales can be delayed. So my advice would be to talk to your solicitors about saying, look, let me pay for the local searches. Let's get them underway, because local searches to the local council can sometimes take several weeks to come back. We've known times in the year when sometimes those searches have even taken months to come back. It's not the process at the moment. It's coming back much, much faster at the moment. And our councils are pretty good at turning these around, to be fair to them. But you need to be prepared for that, particularly if we're working with this time scale involved. The more you can do at the beginning will speed things up at the end and buy you more time.
Mm.
So searches, etc. Let me just explain the sorts of things. I'm just going to read a few out. So they will be doing various searches, local authority searches. Basically, did the property have permission to be built where it's built? Has it been built in the way it should have been done? Is there anything else that's affecting it? Things like covenants, restrictions, shared access, maintenance charges, leasehold arrangements, all those sorts of things. Okay. We've got environmental searches. Radon gas emissions has been one of them. Okay. You've got water and drainage searches as well. So we're looking at whether it's a flood risk, where the drains go to, who's responsible, is it going over an adjacent property, has there ever been any maintenance work done on it, all of the things that you are paying your solicitor to do to make sure that that purchasing you are buying exactly what you are expecting to see from the property. There's nothing unexpected. You know, we've got a lot of old properties in the area, lots of agricultural with what we call ag tags, agricultural ties to them, covenants in regard to where the land is and where the boundaries are. Does somebody have a walkway right of access across your back garden or across your land? Do you need to keep a gate open on your farmland for once a year in order to allow the public over it? Bridleways, pathways, all these sorts of things, because we live in a rural area, this is what the solicitor will be checking. Okay. And it's often at this point that the two channels of conveyancing and the mortgage side come together, because we're now going to deal with inquiries. Now, if we pick up on what Jenny's just said there about the mortgage offer side and the surveyor's been out, and Jenny, you mentioned damp, so let's use that as an example.
Mm-hmm.
A report comes back and it will tell you whether A, the property is what we call valued up. So if you're paying 210,000 for it, they've been out to it, and yes, we think the property is worth 210,000. So like Jenny said, we've got the security that the borrowing and the property is worth what the client's paying for it. It reduces the risk of the lender. But in that report, a surveyor may go, whilst I was there, I was noting that there was some damp in this room, some damp in here, we're just bringing it to your attention. However, sometimes there can be reports which come back and can either be downvalued, and this is where they say, actually, you've agreed 210, but our estimation would say it's only worth 195 because bang, 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 bang. And some of that will be market comparables. Some of it will be that sometimes it might have been a little bit ambitious to achieve in the first place, but more often than that, it's because of condition of the property. And this comes back to security again, that the lender's not going to borrow that 210 if they feel that detrimental works need resolving, damp being one of them, timber reports, roofing, drainage, damage to the property. And it's at this point that the lender may say it's only worth 195. Now, at that point, you're going to need to have a really good relationship with your estate agent, because now you need some help about, look, is the sale going to fall through? Do I have to renegotiate? Am I going to have to bite the bullet? If it means work done on it, do I get the work done and then I get building inspectors and then the surveyor has to come back out again? Or do we agree to sell at the lower price on the basis that the buyer is then going to do the work? Or sometimes you can have a situation, we'll lend on this on the basis that the work is done and the funding is here, and you might have to have additional funds in place to do that work. So this is a crucial part of the process. This is where deals sometimes can be made or broken again. And this is often where relationships, which have been good between buyer and seller, can fall out because the buyer needs to get the right outcome. And sometimes the seller still has to get the outcome that they agreed when the sale was first made. Okay. So that's a really emotional part. The other part is when we're having searches back, and if a problem or a challenge comes up that needs resolving, you're going to need, again, an estate agent who knows what they're talking about and a conveyancer that can work with you to give you the best advice to resolve the outcome that everybody needs at that point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of the valuation as well, from the mortgage side of things, we are seeing lenders lower their risk through valuations. So that what they may have valued up previously, they might knock 10 grand off, or they might say, look, we have now, for this period of time, we're bringing in that we just won't lend on this type of property, or we just won't get involved if it's got this on the property. And this is where it can, like we say, become quite emotional, because someone is selling their home and someone is buying a home. So it is a really emotive thing. And actually having that third party that can sit in the middle, that isn't emotionally attached, yes, they want to help. Yes, they want to do the right thing, but they're not emotionally attached. Allows people to get past those emotions and have those conversations. And that's really is massively important, because the estate agent is that go-between. They're almost like that relationship counsellor at times that can liaise between the two parties, and sometimes even further up the chain. Like one party might be like, well, we can accept this, but I need them to do this. So the solicitor probably isn't going to do that. The mortgage broker probably won't have the authority to do that, but actually the estate agents can have those conversations up that line, because remember, they're the ones with the local connections.
So let's move things on a little bit, mindful of the time. 3 things I think which are quite important now. The next bit is the final preparations. And by this, to sort of skim over a little bit, this is where, again, mortgage lender, mortgage broker starts to really come into their own on making sure that we've got the deposit drawn in from everybody, that we've got that mortgage offer in place, we've got the ability to release the funds ready for exchange of contracts. Now, these are terms that people are probably a bit more familiar with. Exchange of contracts and completion day. They're 2 very different things. They can be the same day. You exchange legal contracts on one day and move the same day. It's always advisable to have a period of time between the 2. But the next stage really is to make sure, say, funds are in place. All the paperwork with the solicitors, they brought you into the office and explained the legal obligation you're now going to have, and you'll sign contracts. So you go, funds all in place, go into the solicitors, sign contracts, all parties agree, right, we're all now ready, we've got funds in place. But person at the bottom end of the chain with the solicitors exchanges, it goes all the way up to the chain, all the way back down again, and everybody says, yes, fantastic, we've exchanged. It's at that point that the sale is legally binding. Now, if anybody backs out the deal at this point, they can be sued, which is why solicitors try and get a short period between exchange and completion where possible. It's usually about a week. Sometimes you can do an early exchange and a delayed completion. Many reasons why. We won't get into that in tonight's show. So if you've got any questions, reach out. But it's normally about a week, 2 weeks, somewhere around about there. We try and keep that as reduced down as we can. Completion date is the day you're going to be moving in. So part of that is you're going to need to look at your removals, get all that booked in. I've known people where they've agreed an exchange and completion, exchanged. Oh, we need to go and ring the removal vans and we now can't get one. So there are busy times in the year. And also, just a little thing on here, Friday is the most expensive day for moving. So if you want to save yourself a few bob as well, move earlier in the week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, removal men are sat there twiddling the thumbs.
Absolutely. I moved on a Tuesday for that exact reason, that I moved on a Tuesday to get the removal people that I wanted and to get a good deal. And just on this as well, exchange of contracts, something that people kind of side note, but I won't bang on about it. That's when your home insurance and your personal protection should go in place. And like Mike says, that's because you're legally responsible for that property at that point. So they are 2 key things that we need to have in place ready for exchange of contracts.
Absolutely. So moving day, again, very, very stressful day sometimes. So again, you need to have had the conversation about who you're handing your keys over to, because you might get a phone call at 11 o'clock to say, fantastic, funds are in completion, hand the keys over to your buyer. Well, what are we supposed to expect? To just, to wait around now? Removal vans are beeping on the horn. They want to be off down the A1 somewhere. You can't complete and hand the keys over onto that one until your completion comes over. You can often have a scenario that while that money is also in transit on your next purchase, your onward purchase, you can rock up from the estate agents or banging on the door, right, we've completed, can we move in? Until the solicitors are in receipt of the funds in the solicitor's office, you can't then complete on your onward. So there can sometimes be a gap in between. Many a time we've had removal vans and furniture out on the driveways waiting even at 5 o'clock at night, waiting for completion monies. Okay, so it can be a stressful time. So the more prep you can do, who's handing the keys over? A good estate agent will say, drop them into me, I'll come and pick them up. Yeah, you get out, you get off on the road, you've got plans to make over, I'll deal with the other end, and when I get the phone call to say it's completed, I'll be available to hand the keys over. And then the final thing just on that is what happens post completion. So on there, we've got the buyer solicitor or conveyancing will be doing things like registering the transfer of the ownership with the land registry. That's really important. The other thing that I'll also be looking at for you as advice as a buyer and seller is Take your meter readings on your day of completion of where you're moving to.
Mhm.
Take your meter readings of where you move to as well. Get on with your utility company fast. Give them the meter readings. If you want to change from one supplier to another, it can take a period of time, anything up to 3 months, but you'll only be paying for the services with one provider up until the handover, which the utilities take care of. But again, have that in mind. A couple of other things: get registered on the electoral roll straight away that you've moved in.
Yep.
And electoral roll that, and driving license. Change your driving license. Legal obligation. Change your driver's license. So these are things that I put in place for 4 weeks after a completion courtesy call. Look, Jenny, I know you're really busy on your day of completion. How did things go? Have you got settled in? Have you got this, that, and the other, all sorted out? But hey, don't forget about these 3 things you need to have got done. Have you sorted utilities? Have you sorted your electoral? And have you sorted your, forgot it again, driving license?
ID. Yeah, I have to say, Mike, that's one of my biggest bugbears. I often come back for the remortgage and I'm like, oh, can I have your updated driving license because you've moved now? Oh, yeah, no, I've not updated that yet. Look, it's £1,000 fine if you get caught with an out of date or incorrect address on your driving license. It takes 3 working days to do it online and get the new one through. So get it done. And those meter readings are crucial. Now, I worked in a big energy supplier. I won't name any names, but I worked there for 10 years. And one of the biggest disputes we had was what we used to call home move disputes. When one person gave one reading, we'd estimated another, or another reading had come through. Because not everyone will move into the property on that day. So they may be owned the property for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even a couple of months before they've moved in because they've done some work to it. Then they've finally taken their meter readings. So hold on to those readings and put them somewhere safe where you actually know you've put them, not somewhere safe that you can never find again until you've got that first bill and can confirm those readings have been used.
Take a photo, evidence. Big one here. Take a photo on your camera. And if you need to give us as evidence, you've got it, because that's date stamped as well. This is not, I know that we're going off talking here, but this is really helpful. This is your nitty gritty. This is your Martin what's his face. He does all the advice here. Right. Take a photo of it. You need evidence. If you move into a new build, please put this so high on your priority list, because sometimes, and I won't get into too much detail now, you're laughing, Jenny, you know what's coming. If you move into a new build and the builder's been using that supply, obviously when they've been there and they've been doing your snagging and you've had the electrics and the heating on or whatever, you need to be really clear of when you took over the ownership with that property. I've known people who've moved into properties who thought that they were paying their utility bills and all of a sudden have been landed with an almighty bill because, again, it wasn't registered with Transco or British Gas or whoever it is the supplier at that point. There's been a dispute, and if you can't give evidence when you moved in and what the meter readings was on that day, you could land yourself with a very, very big bill.
Yeah. And I used to see it all the time. And check the serial number on your gas and electric meter and your water meter as well, because if you've got 50 new houses being built and all the gas guys are coming along and installing the meters, it's very easy for them to put the wrong meter in at the wrong house and register it wrong. And I used to see that a lot. So that's another little tip. But as you're taking that photo, it will give you the serial number all at the same time. And
we talk about gas and electricity. Don't forget your water, because again, not everybody knows where the water meter is or whether it's relevant, because you assume it's the one at the end of your driveway. It's not always. So again, just double checking all your details of, again, in your title pack and everything when you're moving, it'll tell you where your water meter is. Check it's that one, because you don't really give in a neighbour's water meter reading and be paying somebody else's bill.
No, especially if they've got a hot tub.
That's exactly it. Okay, so we have covered a lot in tonight's show, a lot, and we could have extended it. We could sit here talking about this all night, because we hear the good stories, we hear everybody who's in the middle, and we hear the horror stories as well. This is the benefit of us doing this a bit more conversational, and we like to just try and sort of touch on things as and when we go through it, rather than have a set format to it. But look, I've got guides I can help you with. If you need anything, I can send you some information. If you ever need any questions, reach out. Same with Jenny. If you've got any questions on anything we've talked over tonight, and again, we've had some really good engagement. We've had lots of people watching. Thank you, Veronica, Carl, Russ, again, for your support in particular tonight. We've had other people sending over. So we've had some really, really good engagement. This is a really, really important show tonight, I think, which is why we didn't want to rush it. This will be, again, available on all of our social media channels. I promise you, somebody who's watching this tonight will know somebody who is moving, about to move, thinking to move, or it might even be yourself. Please listen back onto this show. Take on board what we said. If there's any questions at all, please reach out. Again, if you're watching it tonight, hit us with a like, share it, let people know about the content of what we've got on here. And again, tell us your stories as well. If this has been relevant to you or it's been helpful, it'd be great to know that as well. But we really appreciate everybody's support on this as well tonight. So thank you very much indeed. As I say, all this show and every others will be back on all of our social medias. But if you need anything at all, please reach out, as I say.
Awesome. Right, guys, look, we're 15 minutes over, so we'll leave it there for you. But like Mike said, just reach out to us. That's what we're here for. Any questions, concerns, stories, we want to hear them all.
Lovely. We'll hope you all have a really, really good week. Look, we've got some positive news again in the media this week in regard to what's happening about asking prices. I'm going to get down to some nitty gritties of what's actually in the news and what's actually really behind the news locally for us, probably for next week as well. But say, have a great week. If we can help you, let us know. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week on the Lincoln Property and Mortgage Show.